to the town of Concord Personnel Board meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at like about 5:18. And that is today, November 30th, 2021. We'll do the roll call. Nancy Crowley.
Here.
Jim Richardson.
Here.
And Bill Marachek here. So we have our quorum. We're ready to approve the minutes of June 2nd, June 11th, and August 12th. Any comments from anyone on the board relating to any of these three sets of minutes?
No, I have none.
Okay.
I have none.
There's a big thank you to Karen. Is that right?
Yes.
Amy?
Karen and Stephanie have.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you to both.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Wonderful.
All right.
Yes.
Really, it's greatly appreciated for sure. All right. We need to approve those minutes. Can we do them all three at one time, or do we have to do each one individually?
You can do them all at once.
Okay,
Motion.
I need a motion to approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2021, June 11th, 2021, and August 12th, 2021. Do I hear a motion to accept, approve?
Okay. I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2021, June 11th, 2021, and August 12th, 2021.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. All those in favor, we'll go through the three of us. Nancy,
Aye.
Jim Richardson,
Aye.
and Bill Marachek, yes. All right, we move to FY22 salary increase plan amendment. We'll turn to Amy for her thoughts.
Yeah, I will give an initial intro and town manager Stephen Crane is also going to talk on this one. That's okay. So just as a background, the history is typically that in many years now has been that the employees have two types of increases. One is an increase that they move usually with the salary range. A structure movement change is what we've referred to it, or market adjustment. And the other is movement within the range. So if somebody is at minimum and the minimum changes, they go up. If they're at midpoint and the midpoint goes up. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Sorry. So they go up if it's a what people commonly refer to as a COLA. If it's within the range, it's going from progressively from minimum to midpoint, and what would commonly be applied as steps in other types of communities. And when the pandemic came about and the budget situation was more uncertain, the ability to provide increases was more limited, and that's what Stephen will talk about. And so the budget included an amount for a 2% increase this past July 1, but for 2 years now, we did not have any increases within the range. Employees did not progress through the range. And Stephen had the intent of continuing to look at that as we see how we went through the pandemic. And so this is a proposal to go back to a policy from that was adopted in July 1 and to amend that to provide now an additional increase. So I'll stop there and let Stephen pick up.
Yeah, I think it's just to build on what Amy was saying, we anticipated when we prepared the FY21 and 22 budgets that there would be revenue losses, especially in meals and rooms receipts as a result of the pandemic capacity limitations. Parking revenues were also way off during the pandemic. And so now that we believe, and so as a result, we we made a number of reductions in our planned budget. In fact, we had an FY21 budget that was, in the can, so to speak. We had already presented it at a public hearing in February. And then, as you may recall, town meeting was pushed off until September that year. And in between, we ended up rewriting quite a bit of the budget and made some reductions. One of the areas that amounted to a reduction really was a suspension of the movement within the ranges for compensation that Amy just described. And so, but employees continued to work really hard during the pandemic, and literally every department, people have had to find new ways of doing the same job they've always done. They've had to absorb new tasks, where, being all that we know about Zoom now, we learned for the majority of us as a result of the pandemic. I had never been on Zoom before, and I don't think many people had either. And so just the tremendous amount of change that we had to absorb as an organization while continuing to provide high quality essential services to the community went on throughout the pandemic, except that effort wasn't really recognized through compensation for employees. We suspended the merit-based system. And so it was kind of a double whammy. Not only did they not get the normal, progression of compensation that many had been accustomed to for years, but we also made it feel like, it wasn't, the suspension of merit really just on its face is how it sounded terrible. So we've been saying from the very beginning, if we get on the backside of after the economic toll of the pandemic is known, we'll see if we can do better. And I think we are comfortable enough with where we are in terms of knowing about the comeback of receipts and tax collections, which never wavered. The tax collections remain strong throughout the property tax collections remain strong throughout the pandemic. And we do see receipts coming back, that we feel comfortable that we have funds in our existing salary reserve to fund this. And we also feel that if needed, we can use American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funds that can be used to offset revenue losses, which was one of the reasons that we did not fund originated compensation, could also be used. So we feel confident that there are funds to provide this. It is, I'll be candid and say it does not really even come close to getting employees whole compared to where they would be if things were, like I said, if we did a normal budget year for those 2 years. And nor does it really come close to expressing how thankful I personally am for the work that they did and how well they served the community and how patient and flexible and committed the workforce was. And so this is I think a small measure of gratitude, and it was definitely well earned and well deserved.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Amy, could you just, actually, a couple of questions. One, how much money are we talking about that will be distributed to employees? If I get this correct?
You mean in dollars or percent?
Yes. Well, in terms of the overall town will incur how much expense associated with the payroll change?
Stephen, did you want to?
I think it's around, I think it's around $300,000 to $400,000.
All right. Now, the fact that the town manager and his staff are presenting this, I assume that there's no requirement that there be any finance committee okay, or this is in keeping with what we as a finance committee have previously approved. So I assume that we don't need any of that to formally permit the personnel board to act on this.
We have talked at finance committee and at select board about compensation being an issue for employees, and that we were going to look for ways to kind of regain some of the ground we lost. They have not contemplated this specific provision. My understanding of the bylaws that changes in compensation like this do go to the personnel board. And so that's why we're here.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the personnel board, Nancy or Jim?
Yeah. And the money's already been appropriated in the salary reserve.
Right, right.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to ask. Where is the money coming from?
So salary reserve, but like I said, I think we do have an option depending on how things play out with ARPA, that we could look at that to reimburse us for this expenditure because it was really a pandemic impact.
Right.
All right.
And this is retro
I'd
back to
also-
July 1.
Pardon?
I just want to confirm this is retro back to July 1.
Yes.
And just another note on funding that there are employees that are covered by enterprise accounts, revolving funds. There's a variety of things, not only salary reserve, as I understand that.
All right, I just also want to ask, I know under 6, the miscellaneous compensation for those that are below the minimum wage, is that included in that, or is this a separate item that will be paid as well from a different area?
Separate.
Separate, okay.
Well, paid from a different area. They're still different than the amount that Stephen was just talking about, but salary reserve and enterprise
Okay.
funds and various budgets cover.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no other comments from the personnel board? Is there any?
I just have one quick question, Bill, sorry. The unionized employees, did they get an increase?
So the contracts are close to being settled, but they are not settled. For July 1, and the unions have been aware that this was a review that Stephen was doing townwide consistently with all of them. Stephen, I don't know if you want to comment more on that.
Yeah, I mean, there were collective bargaining agreements that have been in effect throughout the pandemic, and so the terms of those agreements were honored. Even when non-union employees did not receive the performance-based increases that we're looking to kind of rectify here, people who were in force collective bargaining agreements received their compensation in accordance with the agreements.
All right, thank you. I guess it would be appropriate if there was any comment from the public on this particular item, additional comments or input or questions? Okay, notwithstanding, we need to, so Amy, help me in terms of we need to frame a motion, is that correct?
Right, and I did provide some suggested motions for you on page 2 of the packet. So this one, just a move to approve, sorry, there's an extra D there, but approve the proposed amendment to the FY22 salary increase plan.
All right, do we have a,
I can make the motion. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment for FY22 salary increase plan.
is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, so we'll go around the board, Jim Richardson,
Aye.
Nancy Carly,
Aye.
and Bill Marachek, aye. All right, we're on to the classification actions, which happen to be item 4.
Okay. So on the classification actions, as you know, we have the classification and compensation plan that is for regular status employees and is approved at town meeting every year. Any amendments go to town meeting. The personnel board has authority to make adjustments through the year, but again, all of those are subject to ultimate ratification by town meeting later. So, if the board approves these, employees will be placed into these new titles and ranges, and then we will await town meeting vote to confirm that. So the town manager has the authority to create and design positions and working within the appropriations. And then when the positions are determined based on what the responsibilities are, we take a look at using a standard classification system that looks at multiple factors that are weighted. So things like the knowledge and education required for the position, mental activity, job experience, responsibilities, relationships. There are a number of factors that are taken into consideration. And we do an internal review with several of us when there is a redesigned position, and evaluate it and come up with a score that tells us what grade the position falls in. And then we have some discussions of, does that make sense otherwise, from a budget perspective, from a equity perspective, that sort of things. But the rating system really determines the grade. And so with all of the recommendations that you have here tonight, we've gone through that process. The first one is a request to add the title of Economic Vitality and Tourism Manager to grade MP3 of the class and comp plan effective July 1. And the select board did reorganize the operation of economic vitality and tourism. Tourism used to fall under recreation, and now it has been moved under planning and land management. And the need for economic vitality role in the town has grown, particularly through the pandemic. There was already talk about it before then, and that's become a critical role. And so this is taking a position that has existed to date and redesigning it, updating the job description, making all the changes that went along with that reorganization, and then reevaluating it under the classification system, determine the grade. And so we went through that exercise and recommending grade MP3 for this position. Marcia Rasmussen from the Director of Planning and Land Management is here if you have questions about it. And also Town Manager Stephen Crane has also been involved in that.
All right, questions or comments regarding the Economic Vitality and Tourism Manager position?
Just out of curiosity, what is the pay range for an MP3 for this?
MP3, give me 1 second. The minimum is 65,763 and the max is 99,202.
All right, any other questions? Nancy, you have anything to?
No.
Okay. Why don't we vote then on the acceptance of the Economic and Vitality Tourism Manager to the MP3 classification? I need to have a motion.
Okay. I'd be happy to make a motion that we accept the Economic Vitality and Tourism Manager to the grade 3 MP3 under Planning and Land Management.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
Is there
second it.
a second?
I'll second.
The vote of each of us, Jim Richardson,
Yes.
Nancy Crowley,
Yes.
and Bill Marachek, yes. So Amy, we're going to go to the Health Divisions and Administrative Assistant.
Okay, so the town has a number of employees throughout town that hold titles of administrative assistant, senior administrative assistant, clerks, things like that, that are contained in the administrative clerical portion of the class and comp plan. And while each one may have its own set of responsibilities and specialties within the department that they serve, there are some common features among those positions, which is what they share a title. In this case, the administrative assistant position at the health department has developed. The role of the position has developed over the last years in particular. There, as you can probably imagine, there's been an increased demand on public health services, many more inquiries coming in from the public, more need for knowledge and discretion and confidentiality in the types of interactions that are happening. And while the administrative assistant position may have been involved in that in the past to some degree, the level at which that position is called on now in recent years has certainly increased. And so we've reviewed the position. It's been looked at before, but this time in light of those changes, we've reviewed the position and recommend that the position be reclassified from the administrative assistant title and grade that goes with that over to the senior administrative assistant in the AC5 grade. I will just note that since this is an existing title and an existing grade, if you do this particular one is not subject to ratification at town meeting. It's only changes to the schedule that then move on to town meeting. Once a title exists and a range exists, then the board and the town works within that.
All right. Any questions from the board, Nancy or Jim?
I just wanted to ask, so it's basically a position that's been there all along, but they've just been doing more work, particularly with this. So we're just going to give them a different title because of it and also increase their pay, I would assume.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's an upgrade in the position. The salary range will be wider. And
Right.
so,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the personnel board? I guess actually I should have asked for public comment on the economic vitality tourism manager. I didn't. I'll ask here on the health division's administrative assistant. Any question or comment from the public? All right. Notwithstanding, I don't hear any requests. Let's move to approve the health division's administrative assistant to the senior, to move it to the higher level classification. And I'll need a motion to do that.
I'll do it. I'll make a motion to move to reassign the health division's administrative assistant position to the classification title of senior administrative assistant in the AC5 grade, effective July 1.
All right.
2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy's second, and
Yeah.
we'll vote. All in favor, Nancy,
Aye.
Jim Richardson,
Aye.
and Bill
Aye.
Marachek, aye. Right, we're moving to the production manager discussion for Amy to present.
Okay, this is a proposal to add the title of production manager to grade MP2 of the class and comp effective July 1. This position falls under the Minuteman Media Network Group, part of the whole public information office. As you may know, several years back, I'm going to guess maybe 5, but I actually don't remember, the town took over that operation, the PEG Access Television, and has been since designing an operation around that and positions. And so this is a restructure, a redesign that the managers feel would be a better way of filling the position than what has happened in the first couple of years. I'm not going to go into all of the details, because we do have 2 people here that could answer questions if you'd like to. So Kate Hodges, the deputy town manager, and Erin Stevens, the public information and communications officer. I think I saw her name on here, but I'm not seeing it at the moment, but are here if you have any questions on this one.
All right, any questions from the personnel board?
No.
The only question I have, Amy, is Is this a position an open position now, or is this a filled position now?
It is not filled right now.
It's
We
not.
We have somebody doing some of the duties that an employee that has, there was a station manager, so we have an acting station manager, and this sort of overlaps into some of the duties in this position. Did I get that right, Kate and Aaron?
Yes, we have someone doing it right now, interim, but it has not been permanent at this time.
And this is, this position has been open for how long? Roughly?
This would be a new position technically. The station manager position was vacated about 4 months ago, 3 months ago. But we immediately filled it on an interim basis with the internal candidate, as is relatively customary when we have a vacancy.
All right, thank you. Any comment from the public on regards to the production manager classification action? Yes, Carlin.
Bill, if I may, Carlin Reed, I'm the PEG Access Advisory Committee Chair, but I'm here on my own behalf. I just want to thank the Town Manager's Office very much for offering this assignment of grade and title for the program manager, and I fully support it. So thank you very much. That's it.
All right, thank you, Carlin. Any other comments from the public? Notwithstanding, let's move to a motion. I'll accept the motion then to the classification of the production manager. I need a motion. Whose turn is it?
I'll make a motion to add the new title of production manager to grade MP2 of the classification and comp plan effective July 1, 2021.
All right, thank you, Jim. I need a second.
Second,
All right, thank you, Nancy Crowley. We'll vote now. Nancy Crowley,
yes.
Jim Richardson,
Yes.
and Bill Marachek, yes. All right, that I assume Amy takes care of I mean, it's on the agenda, but I assume that takes care of what you intended to do with these three positions.
Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much.
We're going to go on to item 5, incentive program proposals. And this is another opportunity for Amy to present.
Yes, all right. I'd like to share my screen for a moment. Okay. This is an excerpt from the personnel bylaw. Can you all see it? Just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, so as you know, we have the class and comp plan that provides salary ranges, and those are the base wages for our employees, base rates that we can work within. And there are some other types of pay that that an employee can receive. And there are different ways of adopting or approving those types of pay. And just one common example that's contained in the bylaw is called longevity pay. And so when somebody's been here for 5 years of service, they have, on top of their base pay, they might have, they'd have $125 a year added to their pay there. And that's outside of the salary range that is shown in the warrant. And so this all falls under the bylaw. So this section of the bylaw is 10.3, incentives and reward. And I'm just going to read it out loud, if you don't mind. It says the town manager and personnel board may adopt programs which provide monetary and or non-monetary incentives and rewards to recognize unusual accomplishments and circumstances, such as temporary additional duties, useful suggestions, high productivity, outstanding achievements, etc. Such incentives and rewards may provide an employee with pay which exceeds the maximum of the salary range. However, such pay may not become a permanent part of the employee's compensation. Any program adopted under this section shall be effective only if funds are available for the purpose. So the concept here was that town meeting would approve things that were more part of the permanent compensation that are of this nature. But mid-year, if it was incentives, rewards, things like that, the personnel board and town manager can adopt. And so tonight we have proposals for a few different programs that are being recommended under incentives and rewards. And I can't say that we've used this often. This isn't a normal thing. We do temporary additional duties. That's common when somebody, perhaps in a vacant position or takes on something, outside of their regular scope of duties. We do that regularly, but we haven't always used the other pieces. And a lot's changed in the labor market, and definitely as we keep talking about through the last couple of years with COVID and other factors. And so we have a few things that we would like to present to you for consideration under this. And the first two on this, we were, asking whether you feel ready to vote tonight, and if so, we'd ask for a vote. I'm sorry. And then the third one that we'll get to on recreation is a concept. It's a lot more detailed, and there's a presentation to just start the wheels thinking and see about coming back and talking about it more. So the first one is related to the police department, and it's a proposal for a police body worn in-vehicle camera bonus program. And Stephen Crane, town manager, is going to discuss this one.
Yeah, so as you have the thing in the packet, we reached an MOA with the patrol union to adopt the dash and body cam program. I believe that we were maybe the 10th or 12th department in the Commonwealth to do that. It is still not a very typical thing. And we were able to, they embrace the program. They have seen the end in seeing it deployed and and as the program evolved, the command staff, the chief, the captain, lieutenants, sergeants, lieutenants, all immediately recognized the value of the program and immediately adopted its utilization for themselves too, without any prompting or requesting or anything. They just said, "This is really working. We think this is going to work. We believe in it, so we are going to wear them ourselves and have them in our cars." And so, under the MOA with the patrol officers union, there was a stipend, a one-time stipend of $1,500 for the adoption of this program, instead of which is a really great thing because it's not an ongoing cost in terms of like a percentage. Many departments that have these have percentages associated with the adoption of the program. Ours is a one-time stipend, and so we feel the only fair thing to do is to extend that stipend to the command staff as well.
All right.
And I would say, as an aside, we've already seen in some investigations and in some instances that we've had the benefits certainly from a training standpoint of the body cameras, and so it's getting very high marks from the police department.
All right. Thank you. Questions? A couple questions I have. Number one is, since there are 11 other municipalities that have body cameras, do we have any idea of how many of those 11 have some kind of incentive? Do they, or maybe they all have, or do we have any statistical analysis or review of that?
I don't want to put the chief on the spot. He's here, but I think anecdotally, I think every department that has these do include, each department that has these compensates their employees for having them.
Okay, so we're not doing anything that's really unusual or an outlier by any stretch of the imagination.
No, what I think is unusual is that it is a one-time stipend instead of an ongoing percentage.
Right. The one comment that I find sort of interesting is the fact that here the personnel board is getting involved with a union matter, and it's been my understanding that the personnel board has not had anything to do with the union. So I'm trying to understand, what is it, simply because the personnel bylaw?
No, it's Well, it is the personnel bylaw, but the command staff of the police department are not unionized. They are non-union employees.
Okay. I knew there was, I didn't realize, okay,
Yeah.
right. So then that makes perfectly good sense
Right.
to be involved. Right,
Uh,
Nancy
Steve,
or Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, have they already been using these? I'm sorry if I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay, for how long?
I think since the summertime. I think that they've been integrating them over time, but I think the program has been fully deployed since the summer. I don't remember the exact date. I remember I did send something to the select board that the program was in full effect. I don't remember exactly when that was, but it was several months ago, I think.
Right, okay. I think it's great. So, thank you.
It's a credit to Chief O'Connor, really. It's a credit to Chief O'Connor and the command staff that the entire department has really embraced this.
Right.
No, I think it's a great idea. The question I had is, isn't there, didn't Governor Baker put out funds or grants for exactly this for towns to provide? And if so, have we applied for any of those?
I'm not sure if, I don't think we used grant funds to purchase these. I think we were, good. The chief is here, so he can answer that question better than I can, but I don't believe we did. You muted, Chief.
You're on mute.
Muted.
I'm sorry, I'll speak to that question. I don't want to speak to the compensation piece, but we moved forward with this program long before the governor proposed legislation for that and enacted it before any type of grant funding was available.
Right, thank you, Chief. Any other points, Jim, are you,
No, I'm good.
okay? Any more comments from Nancy here?
No,
All right, maybe, is there any public comments on this particular topic? All right, let's move to proceed with the vote to accept the proposal for the police management body worn in vehicle cameras.
okay.
Okay, Nancy,
Do you want me to, I agree. Want me to propose it or?
please propose.
Okay. So I'd be happy to propose an incentive program for the police management body worn flash and vehicle cameras.
All right, is there a second?
I second it.
All right. We'll go in terms of the vote. Nancy, probably,
Yes.
Jim Richardson,
Yes.
and Bill Barachek, yes. All right, we're now to the incentive program proposal for the line workers.
Okay, and CMLP Director Dave Wood is here, so I can tell you about that.
So good evening. In your packet, you should have received a line worker incentive pay program that we put together for consideration. You know, our line workers provide critical service in a safely delivering electricity to the community. It's a very dangerous position or positions. And, you know, with the market has kind of dropped and we didn't stay in the market. So our pay is lower than it should be. And it's made it very difficult for us to attract and retain line workers. So we put this together. It would be eligible to the line supervisor, the lead line workers, and the grades 1, 2, and 3 line workers. We're looking to have the policy effective for FY22. It would be a temporary bonus on an hourly basis of $3.25. And we recognize that we need to make permanent changes, but that would have to be subject to the classification and compensation plan and adopted and amended at town meeting. So that's really where we are. We've had the line worker position posted for well over 7 months, and we're just not attracting people that we need to. And we've had line workers leave as well and go to other MLPs for higher rates of pay. So I'll field any questions you might have, but that's what we're asking for.
All right. Thank you. So how are you actually getting the job done? If you have all these people who've left and openings, and
So
where are the resources to get the job done?
So we have limited resources. We've had to delay projects. When we have emergencies, we have to rely on mutual aid. And the last few storms, we're fortunate enough to get mutual aid to help us through it. But it's really, it's an unsafe situation that we're in. We don't have enough less guys, and safety's first with us. And we really need to get more first-class guys in. But the short answer to that is we've been relying on mutual aid from other MLPs.
All right. Thank you. Questions from the Personnel Board? Yes, Nancy?
I had a couple of things. Number one, how many line workers, David, do you have now?
Right now, we have 3 first-class line workers, 2 apprentices, and a supervisor. So we have a few positions open.
Okay, and so therefore, this $3.25 an hour bonus would be for anyone coming in and all the current ones as well,
Correct.
right? Okay. And my last question would be, I'm just curious, I'm just wondering where the additional finances will come from.
So this will come out of the electric fund. We're an enterprise fund.
Okay.
And, it'll be about, on base pay, it'd be about $6,800 a year per employee, or would work out to a little over 61,000 for if we were fully staffed for all the employees.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So why wouldn't we just raise the range on the job? I mean, if we're struggling to hire folks and it's underpaid, this feels like a pay raise in disguise. I mean, I think it's warranted. I'm not trying to argue that. I guess it feels like a pay raise in disguise.
Yeah, so it's a great point. To increase the ranges requires town meeting vote, and we feel that we can't wait until April because we have lost people. Our qualified guys that are working for us right now, waiting to see what we're doing, and they've been offered positions elsewhere, and haven't taken them. So we're really dealing with an emergency situation right now.
I will note that going back to the bylaw, I think the Personnel Board can take actions to go back and be ratified by town meeting. And that's awkward for a lot of employees, While to date, it hasn't happened that we get to town meeting and town meeting says no. We're making promises to people and maybe advertising ranges and doing things that we don't know yet if we have that public support. And so that's part of the consideration here, that and that we're trying to balance the unusual, and quickly emerging situation and assess it. So I think there will be a proposal for town meeting that we'd like to have effective July 1 as part of the class and comp plan, but to do a change in the range when we're not doing that for other positions and we have to hear from town meeting later is awkward. Part of the consideration.
Any other comments from the Personnel Board? I just want to sort of echo Amy's point here, and this is obviously goes back to the ongoing conversation we've had for years as to the ability of the town manager to make these decisions. And we've got, obviously we can go ahead and move, but in terms of the ratification and approval, you have to wait till town meeting. And I think it's just another one of the many examples as to why we need to make a change. And I hope the Personnel Study Group will look at this closely to recognize how inefficient and how unnecessary our current process it really is. Okay, no more questions, Nancy or Jim, correct?
No.
Okay, so any comments from the public? Okay, not seeing any. Let's move-
Bill,
Yeah, Susan,
Susan.
Yeah. I just had a question for Dave. You work on a calendar year basis, is that right?
that's correct.
So do you have anything in your next year budget to adjust the salary ranges for these positions?
Yeah, so we're in the budget process right now. Actually, will be presented to the Light Board in December. We have budgeted for the increase. So we're kind of looking at it as to where it should be, and that's the approach we took.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Okay, not seeing any. Let's move to promotion for the incentive program proposal for the line workers.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed line worker incentive pay program.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I second that
Nancy
motion.
Crowley, thank you. And let's go around and vote. Jim Richardson
Yes,
and Nancy Crowley
Yes,
and Bill Marachek, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Dave, for your
Okay.
assistance here. Let's go on to the next item, which I guess Amy is just sort of laying the groundwork and the presentation for the incentive program proposal for the Recreation Department.
Correct, and we have Recreation Director Anna McCune here to tell you about the ideas.
Great, thanks, Amy. And thanks everybody for having us tonight. The information and the presentation that I'm going to show you is certainly more involved and layered than the last two incentive programs. So feel free to ask questions. I'm trying to just gather your feedback tonight. And I certainly can email you the presentation to look at afterwards to follow along as well. So I'm going to share my screen.
Anna, I think it might be important just to lay sort of the groundwork for why this is important before we sort of jump in. So I'm Kate Hodges, obviously Deputy Town Manager, and I'm also the department head for Recreation. And I think I can speak for all of us in Recreation and at least in the administrative area that we have seen a real challenge, particularly at Beady, in ways that we can generate revenue and enough revenue to be able to sustain the operation. And that isn't to say that it's easier necessarily on the recreation side, but things like summer camp and after school programs, those are staples within the community, and in some cases, a necessity, particularly childcare. Whereas, things like Beady and being able to participate in swim and fitness is, although desirable for some people, it usually requires their, an income source. And so that's different than other enterprise accounts, like the light plant that you just heard from. People are going to pay the rates because they need to have the electricity. People may not choose to spend, the money that it costs to participate in programs if they feel like they can't afford it. And so what we've tried to do, and Anna will go through it, the rec department administrative team has really sat down and tried to look at how it is that we can incentivize people who are going above and beyond, but also generating revenue. So the idea is really born from the private sector, where I know that we usually compare ourselves to the public sector in many ways. That's very reasonable. In this case, we have to look at the way that other gyms and fitness centers operate, and Anna will go into it, but as by way of an example, personal training. Generally speaking, personal trainers are rewarded for the amount of clients that they're able to either generate new clients or the number of training sessions that they do in a given month. It incentivizes them to sell. It incentivizes them to come to work, to be diligent, to be engaging. And so far we haven't been able to do that. And so unfortunately, I think that we're not keeping up with the way that the field is evolving. And I think that doing this and hopefully getting your support in some variation of what Anna is going to talk to you about I think will help bridge some of the gap that we're finding at Beady. So with that, thank you for indulging me. I'm handing that over to Anna.
Thanks, Kate. That was a great introduction. And I apologize if you hear any banging. I have a basketball program happening overhead, so bear with me. So like Kate said, this is a really imperative incentive program that we're pitching tonight, and I'll get into the details now. Can everyone see the screen okay? Is that working?
Yep.
Okay. So just a quick overview. The recreation team has 17 full-time staff and over 300 part-time staff that are limited status or temporary, vary seasonally, depending on the program and the activity season. We pride ourselves in being a fair and equitable employer with a team of staff that includes folks with varying abilities, ages, gender, sexual orientations, races, and we see those employees coming and working in our programs across all areas. These staff are what keep our door open. They are the ones that oversee the programs, often design the programs, and we're extremely dependent on them being here. And just like Dave was mentioning, it's a tough time right now. We are lacking in staff, we're losing staff, people are choosing to take remote work jobs and not be in person training or running yoga classes, and it's been a struggle. So the proposal tonight that I'm going to talk about will just look at 3 different incentive models based on 3 different program areas. And I think it's important to point out as well, I did do some market research on incentive programs. I reached out to over 100 different recreation directors in Massachusetts and heard back from about 30, and nobody has the scope of programs that we do in terms of community fitness, a swim facility, things of that nature. And nobody has incentive programs like this. They're all very interested in learning how this turns out, but we don't really have another community to use as a model for our programs moving forward. So very briefly, we have 2 large portions of operation. The first main area of operation is the Hunt Recreation Center. It is the part of the recreation department that oversees summer camp, childcare, sports programs, the White Pond Beach operation, special events, things of that nature. The only tax funding that this portion of the operation receives is for the recreation director's salary. Everything else is funded solely by program fees and user participation, which again, it makes it touch and go in years like the last 2, to hit our numbers. So tonight, specifically, I'm going to be talking about an incentive program within what's identified as the recreation program budget. That accounts for about 14% of our revenues on this side of the operation. The other side of the operation that we'll talk about tonight is, as Kate mentioned, the Beady Swim and Fitness Center, which is up by the high school. Programs that are facilitated within that operation include group exercise, personal training, a variety of aquatics programs, including swimming lessons for youth and adults, swim teams, diving programs, things of that nature. We also facilitate special events and do rentals, as well as sell memberships to the center. The Beady Center is an enterprise account. It is self-sustaining with no tax support. And for those that aren't aware of the overhead to run an indoor aquatics facility in New England, the expenses associated with simply operating the facility are immense. And those are the sorts of expenses where there is not revenue streams to directly make up for those losses. So we're looking to expand and motivate our staff within 3 specific areas: group exercise, swim programs, which includes our aquatics fitness, and then our personal training. And those are the 3 pieces that I'll talk about. So as we started to brainstorm, what we could do to help motivate employees to gain more clients, gain more customers, gain more revenue, we've worked really closely with human resources in the town manager's office to assure that we're aware of and understand the liabilities associated with the Massachusetts Equal Pay Act, as well as other pieces of equal pay that are on the forefront of concepts like this. So as I previously mentioned, we reached out to other departments. Nobody has other programs in place that we could use as a model. So we really had to start from scratch with Amy's support. And what I'm going to work to address tonight within these 3 program areas that you see on the screen is that each of these program areas has varying levels of responsibility, experience, and functional oversight, which justify different incentive programs. And also that the justification for the pay disparities is reasonable. So the first of the 3 program areas that I wanted to touch on is within the general recreation programs, as you see here. And this isn't something that we're actually trying to change or adjust tonight. So this incentive model falls within the other special pay provisions within the personnel bylaw, which allows the town manager to adopt policies that are consistent with the municipal market. And this program area is one where our program staff receive 70% of a program's net revenue, less the hourly pay and the program expenses associated. This is a program and model that many other communities use. It's very common, which is why it's been able to fall within the 10.7 bylaw. And again, we're not looking to change this tonight, just pointing out that this is one of the incentive areas that we currently have. You can see on the right-hand side a little information about the employees that fall within this incentive program. Typically, these are our temporary status seasonal employees that work maybe just for the school year or just for one season. They have no specifications of certification requirements, so you don't have to hold a degree. You don't have to have special training or continuing education typically in these program areas. They only have to be 16 years of age or older. They're all paid the flat base rate of $25 an hour. There's no variability in their teaching locations. So we pick their location, that's where they teach, and that's the only option. We have strict enrollment criteria. So primarily these staff are working at the elementary schools, and they are only working with students in that elementary school. They only do in-person classes, and we prefer that they have CPR first aid, but it's not required. A program example of this is a fuzzy felt class that we run at one of the elementary schools. So we have a teacher who does sewing-based arts and crafts projects. And again, doesn't require certification to do that. It's just an interest area and a niche and enjoyment of hers. And then getting into the second program model, this model looks at land and aquatics fitness programs and ways that we can incentivize those staff. These are our yoga teachers, our Pilates instructors, spin instructors, deep water workout instructors, people of that nature. So the basis of this incentive program would allow land and aquatics fitness classes that exceed minimum enrollment, which is 6, at any point during the class term to receive an additional $1 per person per week. So any enrollment over 6 is an extra $1 per hour per person. We see this as a very reasonable and very motivating incentive for these staff. Typically, we're running classes with minimum enrollment, which is little to no net revenue for the department. So this would help the staff, reach out and keep clients, encourage current clients to bring in a family member or a friend, really just motivate them to share in some of the marketing of the programs that they're facilitating for us. It's important to note that the land and aquatics fitness staff are all paid very similar base rates. So they still perform functions on the miscellaneous compensation schedule, and they would all be paid that base rate in addition to this. For most of those employees, that's about $46 an hour where they start. You can see on the right-hand side, again, the comparisons of what these staff are typically required to have compared to the previous slide of general recreation employees. So these folks are limited status. They run programs for us year round, not just seasonally. They must have a skill certification. So if somebody is going to be teaching a yoga class, we require the 200-hour certification or greater. They must have prior teaching experience. They must be 18 years of age or older. As I mentioned, they all have a similar base rate. They do have variability in their teaching locations, so their environment changes. Not sure if you've been on the pool deck of the Beady Center, but it's extremely humid and hot. It's a strenuous work environment. So they might teach inside at the pool, they might teach outside in one of the parks, they might be in one of our various buildings throughout town. So those locations do vary. They're currently teaching in-person and online classes. That's been kind of a silver lining of COVID. We do have some folks that are interested in just online only classes. So these employees can teach in person or online. And they must have a CPR first aid certification. So again, very different roles, responsibilities, expectations of these folks versus the general recreation programs. Any questions on those two? It's a lot to take in. Susan.
Yes, Anna, thank you for all that helpful information. I was wondering, the first category mentioned that the employee receives 70% of net.
Mhm.
What's the difference? What are the expenses that come between gross and net in that category?
Sure.
Is it-
So we might see for Fuzzy Felt, for instance, we buy the craft materials that she uses to run the program. That isn't usually a huge number. It might be that in different times or environments, we would have to rent a space for a teacher to run a class. So we approached that with one of our musical theater programs during COVID. When we couldn't use the schools, we considered renting outdoor space. So those would be some examples of the expenses outside of their weekly salary.
Thank you.
Anna, this is Bill. What I just heard sounds very data intensive. That is, you must have some system that is able to track invoices and expenditures of materials purchased. And
Yes.
many times these type of expenses are it's not real time. There's delays in terms of invoicing and payment and so forth. So you have the capacity to be able to track these real time to make quick decisions on how much to add to a person's pay. Am I making?
Yeah, yes, you're correct. We have software, an internal software that we use that tracks all of those things that you just mentioned. But we also don't do the final payout, that net 70%, until the program is complete. So typically 8 to 10 week long classes, we're paying this employee bi-weekly, their regular $25 an hour rate. Then when the program is done, we see the final roster, we see the final expenses, we submit for their incentive pay on payroll.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the personnel board?
I do have a couple more slides.
Let's do it.
Can you still see my screen? Did it go away?
It went away.
No.
Sorry about that. You see it now?
Yes.
This is Geraldine, one of our aquatics fitness instructors. So again, this just kind of speaks to the justification of that fitness incentive program. And again, our goal here is to reward our staff that are exceeding expectations, that are working really hard to grow classes, to bring in that revenue to help keep our doors open. They have very different job demands than the general recreation staff, different enrollment opportunities, different work environments. So again, we really see this as a model that would reward staff for exceeding basic expectations. And then the last part of the incentive presentation tonight is that third program area that I mentioned as our personal training staff. So the Beady Center right now has 2 full-time and 6 part-time personal trainers, which adds a whole nother variable and level to an incentive program. So we have our part-time and our full-time staff. The model that we're looking at here, like Kate mentioned earlier, rewards those staff quarterly for selling a certain quantity of training sessions. So right now, our trainers just make an hourly rate. Doesn't matter if they come in the door and sell 1 session, or if they're working really hard and they're selling 50 sessions a quarter. There's no motivation or incentive for that person doing an excellent job for us. And this is hopefully going to make up for that. So limited status trainers, we have trainers that vary from, 3 or 4 hours a week to 15, under 19. And looking at those individuals, you can see there's 3 different levels of sale with 3 different levels of incentives at the end of each quarter. And again, the registration software that I referred to tracks all of this. So we know who does what's been sold to what client and at what time. We would expect our limited status employees, who again work varied hours, to not necessarily sell as much as our 2 full-time employees. So you'll see that the hours sold and the incentive amounts are different because of that. We, again, want to motivate those staff to hit these numbers to receive that bonus, which ultimately at the end of a year could be up to $1,200 for a regular status employee and $800 for a part-time employee, which is a great bonus in the personal training field. On the right, you'll see again the qualifications and the requirements of that position as compared to others. They must be a personal trainer certified. They must have 2 years of experience training. They have to have specialized knowledge in kinesiology, laws, body mechanics, things of that nature. They can train in variable locations. They do in-person and online training, and they must have CPR first aid. So again, higher level qualifications than the previous 2. So again, just the justification here. The reason why this incentive program has to be different than our general fitness is because these folks work with 1 person at a time. So the model of filling a class and exceeding minimum enrollment simply won't work. So this rewards them for those single sales versus the group land and aquatics fitness staff. They're rewarded for exceeding minimum enrollment. So in summary, what we're exploring has shown us that one model is not going to fit all of these different program areas. The staff would continue to be paid equitable base rates. We have scales and structures in place to make sure of that. We feel like we're able to justify the different incentive programs based on those NEPA guidelines. And ultimately, our goal is to expand our programs and to bring in more revenue. So again, here tonight for feedback, criticism, anything that you might have based on these concepts.
All right, thank you, Anna. With the personnel board comments, Nancy, do you have any questions or comments for Anna?
Well, I'm just trying to put it all together here because it's the 3 separate programs. So obviously, I mean, you need to attract your employees and keep the ones that you've got. By these incentives, do you feel that there will be money to compensate them and that this will be a positive?
Yes, I think if it works, right? If they gain more clients, if they sell more packages, the revenue is naturally there to help cover these pieces. So yes, we feel very confident that we would be able to cover these expenses.
And have you done any sort of projection as to what that might look like? Because obviously it is self-funded, right? So this is coming out of the bottom line.
So I don't have any hard data to share with you tonight. What's different this year when looking at the expenses and revenues associated in these program areas versus 3 years ago. For instance, we had 22 group fitness instructors in 2019, and now we have 6. So the expenses that we've budgeted are for more staff hours, but we don't have the staff. So we certainly, will be doing a little more research internally as we work out this program and these models to make sure that yes, we will feel confident that we would get enough additional participations above that 6 for group fitness and more sales for personal training with these new models, for sure.
Anything else, Nancy or Jim?
No, I think it's a great idea.
No, let me ask you this. Are you going to, you're looking for an answer tonight? You're looking for something from us tonight? Or are you coming back again? I wasn't sure what was happening.
I recognize that it was a lot of information to throw at you tonight and thought that it might be important to let it marinate and send you this information to look at. So no, I wasn't expecting a vote or an approval tonight, more just feedback to come back to the December 8th meeting for a vote.
All right, thank you, Anna. I have 3 questions. One has to do with the numbers. The personal trainer, there are numbers there, there are dollars there. And I'm curious, why were those numbers selected? What was your data source? How did you rationalize or justify that those are the right numbers? Because obviously this is to be tested. We have no real experience, firsthand experience. So we don't know whether this is going to work. We obviously have an objective in mind that it does work, but I'm just curious, where are the numbers? How did you figure that out?
It's a great question. And some of it is, throwing it against the wall and hoping that it sticks. And other is feedback from some of our employees and from the fitness experts that we have at the Beady Center with what is reasonable, what is a fair and competitive compensation for this sort of extra work. A lot of our staff do work at other facilities, so we do have a bit of an inside eye as to what programs might be happening in the private sector. And honestly, they typically have higher hourly rates, which we're not looking for right now. So we're hoping that this, again, accommodates that gap of hourly rate and compensation for extra sales.
Okay. My next question has to do with the pandemic is almost 2 years old. And I'm not looking for specific numbers, but could you just talk through the enrollment at the Beady, how you go back 2 years and what's happened in terms of the actual participation at the Beady Center?
Sure. And if you give me a minute, I can actually pull up the membership numbers. So we're actually seeing a great return right now on membership, which is really promising. We're running some promotions for personal training and for joining with no membership joining fee. And we're seeing a really great response. So we're slowly seeing all of our membership categories tick back. There certainly has been a loss of some memberships with people not comfortable coming back into the building and exercising in spaces. But it is a promising, the numbers are promising right now for this budget year. If you want to ask me your third question, I'll find.
Well, I'm still on that one. Do you have in the budgeting process, do you actually have a minimum number of membership participants in order to break even? I mean, did you have a what if scenario?
So our what if scenario is more about our fund balance. So we need to keep about 6 months of operating expenses in our fund balance. The membership expense or revenues are about 54% of what we plan for our operations, and the rest is programmatic. So no, there isn't a minimum number. There's so many variables with our memberships: family membership, day pass, senior adult, single adult, couple adult. So there's so many variables. We do track how many of each of those we sell annually to help, convert to what our revenue goals are. But no, we more so look at our fund balance.
Okay.
Question.
My last question has to do with, if I heard correctly, in terms of the fitness program,
Mhm.
that the starting rate is $46 an hour.
Yes,
So that means that a person who's working in the fitness program area starts at $46 an hour.
correct.
Okay.
But Anna, is it fair to say a lot
Thinking of it, oh, okay, sorry. I was gonna say, I was thinking that you might be thinking of it as a 40-hour-a-week job. And it is not. You come in and you teach a class. And so you are paid $46 to teach that class because that's your hour. But you're not showing up to Beady and working 40 hours a week. If we had 40 hours of people who wanted to take classes, we would gladly take it. But I think if you go to any gym or any facility and you want to take a Zumba class or a spin class, those individuals are paid per class. We don't have that type of system. So we have an hourly system. And so essentially they have a higher hourly rate.
Great, thanks, Kate.
And can I just note, this is an area that we have struggled on administratively in some ways, in terms of the class and comp plan. The swim fitness range it goes from minimum wage up to 60 something an hour. When Beady Center opened, we had to figure out how to fit that into the personnel bylaw, the class and comp plan, the fact that things had to go to town meeting once a year, the fact that employees in these fields only, sometimes work, they work in multiple functions, so they might be getting $15 an hour for some of their shifts when they're lifeguarding, and then when they do a private class swim instruction, it's something different. And it's been difficult to capture all of that in our plan, which is why you see this wide range before town meeting, and then these sub ranges that we talk about through the miscellaneous comp schedule. It's a lot of details,
Any other questions from the Personnel Board?
I just wanted to say that, in light of the new variant, the Omicron, that, I think that's might make a huge difference in people wanting to go out to be involved. I think it may put a damper on getting new people in. I just wanted to put that in there because I see it very similar as the winter is starting to come and things are really revving up a bit. So it's kind of one of those spots where you really want to start it so you will keep the people that you have, and yet will you be able to get the membership that you need? So I think it's kind of a tough call, but
Yeah, if I could just say, the impetus behind this has always been, and again, I was not in Concord's employ when Beady opened, but what I do know in another life is I used to run a swim and fitness center in Lexington that was privately owned, and it was always the balance between getting people in the door and incentivizing them to come in the door, and incentivizing the people who work there to not work at the gym down the street. And so unfortunately, we're in that position here. And I think it's pretty telling that Anna, she and I talked about it and attempted to contact, 100 other rec departments. And I actually just said to the town manager today, that Beady was one of the things when I applied here that I thought was so unique and so exciting. And I couldn't wait to, you know, get my arms around it. And it is also one of the most challenging parts of my job, if not the most challenging, because it's running a private swim and fitness club, which is really a municipal facility. So it has all the municipal rules that it needs to follow. And I think we need to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, like Anna said, and hope that enough people want to come out. And if they don't, at least they hopefully are at home feeling like they're missing out on something great and can't wait until, you know, the pandemic is fully behind us so that they can come back in. We don't really have another choice.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's important that to recognize that the number one objective is to be able to bring in more people or have people who are currently membership to increase their participation for paid programs. So we could have the best incentive plan possible, and it might not work, not at all because of the incentive plan, but because the pandemic is, as Nancy points out, people are just very reluctant to want to return to that kind of environment. So yes, it's throwing the numbers against the board, which I think in this case we need to do, but it's not necessarily an easy one to say whether it's going to work or not, at least at this point.
Couldn't agree more.
Exactly. And the double-edged sword here is, yes, we need the members and the participants, but we also need to be able to keep our staff in a time in the workforce where people are seeking other options and staying home. So we're hoping that, internal plans that we're making to motivate new members and participation will combine nicely with a new incentive program for our staff that will only prove to benefit Beady.
All right.
It may give you the opportunity to get a better level of instruction as well. So.
Exactly.
All right. So as Anna has pointed out, the purpose of this presentation was simply to lay the groundwork, allow us, the Personnel Board, to reflect. And what is the next step, Anna? Another presentation before the Personnel Board?
I think you guys are meeting on the 8th. And I don't think Anna would mind, because I asked her. She is expecting a child, her second, any day now.
Oh, all right.
So it could be possible that you're stuck with me and Adam Lapointe, who is our new assistant recreation director and has jumped in with both feet, and we're making him swim, no pun intended. And so I guess I would like, and when Amy and I talked with Anna about this, I'd like the board to have a chance to look over what was sent, look over, the slides, and we can certainly get those to you if you don't have them, and then perhaps come back at the next meeting, either with more questions or changes or whatever, and then perhaps have a vote. And I think that would be ideal because it allows us to marry this incentive plan with the new programming and the new rates and the new initiatives that we're rolling out effective, the first of the year. So we want to heavily advertise these new type of personal training things in January for a February implementation, but we can't do that without this piece. So this is the first piece of that.
All right.
No pressure.
I'll note that. Sorry, Bill.
No, the 8th of December is not going to be there will not be a meeting because we will not have a quorum. So we're in the process of designating the next meeting date, and Amy's is on top of that. So hopefully we'll have some kind of answer here shortly.
So the short answer is it's very important to us for our plan to have an answer by, the end of December. And I'm hopeful that there's some date in there that that can fit into everybody's schedule, and we will make ourselves available whenever and however that needs to happen.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the Personnel Board or questions? Is there any public discussion, any public comment, any public input? Okay, well, Anna, Kate, thank you.
Very
And
much.
we will, when we convene next, we'll work with Amy so we can make certain the agenda item properly informs people as to what our intent is with this. So thank you, well done.
Right.
And-
Thank
Very
you
much.
for your consideration.
All right, so Amy, we're able to go on to number 6, miscellaneous comp schedule updates.
Correct. Okay, so, do you know there's a Massachusetts minimum wage law that has been going up progressively every January 1 for several years now, so we've known that. Municipalities are not subject to that law. We're only subject to the federal law, and so therefore it does take action by the town to decide to match that minimum wage. In all the time that I've been with the town, that has always been the philosophy and the intent. Well, we want to retain the right to evaluate that constantly and look at funding and all that. We still think that it is important to provide employees with a pay that's at least the minimum wage, if not more. And so we will need to do some more work at looking at miscellaneous compensation schedules and the impacts of moving the minimum wage. We've been working on some of that. There's a lot of factors involved. So for example, if we comply with minimum wage and move up to $14.25 for a position, another position above it may need to move. And these are all, when I say miscellaneous comp, these are the limited status and temporary, not the full-time. Those ranges are already in compliance with minimum wage. So there is some more to do that we foresee coming back to the board probably in December with some additional adjustments. But in the meantime, we wanted to be able to make adjustments for any employee who is paid below $14.25 and bring that rate up effective January 1, 2022. So we didn't want to miss this opportunity to do this with the board, even though there's some more work ahead.
Okay.
So that's the recommendation, is that we just, any range that's below the $14.25 automatically go up to that minimum.
All right, so what we're going to do here is to we'll need a motion in order to do that. And am I correct, Amy, that in essence, this is another example where this has to get presented at town meeting in June 2022 for affirmation?
No, this one does not, because the positions that are on the miscellaneous compensation schedule, those plans, miscellaneous comp schedules can be adopted by the personnel board and town manager. So it's
Okay.
only regular status positions, 20 hours or more a week for year round that go forward to town meeting.
Okay. So any comments, questions from personnel board?
Yeah.
My only question is, sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
I just wanted to ask, you have a number of people that are below that would automatically go up? Then would it be they would go up $1 or 50 cents or stuff like that? I mean, just trying to figure out if this is a huge amount or a small amount or.
Nancy, I don't
Okay.
have that number today. We certainly will be looking at those incremental amounts. It is something we plan for through the budget process, and that's part with salary reserve and any of the accounts that are affected. It's been incorporated into that,
Okay,
but no, I don't.
just
Sorry.
curious. Yeah, it has to be done. I'm just,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, fine.
What's the minimum today, Amy? 12?
75 cents less. So 1350.
1350. Okay. Yeah, my question was the same as Nancy's. What's the impact that we know of how many folks this may impact? But I would agree.
Yeah, some of the-
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that there are a lot of positions that it's not going to impact immediately. So the number of people we have on payroll changes dramatically through the year. So this is likely to impact like the summer programs.
Right.
So right now we have approximately 450 people that we're paying. And then we're going to hire summer people and camp programs and all that. And that number will increase dramatically for a few months, right? By 50 or more people.
Yeah.
So right now, the kinds of positions that would be impacted might be a lifeguard or a program assistant, but more limited, senior work program, things like that.
Yeah. But you will easily lose any of those people to, any other type of job if they can make $14.25 somewhere else and not $14.25 for the town.
Exactly.
So I think you've got it.
Nancy, any additional?
No.
Okay,
No.
so we need a motion to change the miscellaneous compensation schedule effective January 1st. I need a motion from
Okay,
committee.
I'd be happy to. So I make a motion that we, under the miscellaneous compensation schedule that we increase all pay range minimums that are below Massachusetts minimum wage to $14.25 an hour, effective 1/1/2022.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Right, thank you. Let's vote. Jim Richardson,
Yes.
Nancy Crowley,
Yes.
and Bill Marachek, yes. Thank you, Amy, for that part of the agenda. Let's move on to number 7, vacation leave policy proposal.
Okay, so the next several things, again, we're not asking for a vote. We want to talk about some of the things that the management team has been observing and considering and discussing, and would like to talk with the board about. There's a little bit of uncertainty on the best process right now, as we've been waiting to find out sort of the structure of the bylaw and what the task force is looking at and what the personnel board is, but we're still going to be working with the personnel board's current charge, and the charge for the board relates to leave time for the regular status non-union positions. And, again, we keep talking about the changes in the labor market, the need to be nimble and reactive to what's been going on. And we've also been, for a couple of years, looking at ways of how can we be more efficient, less time on some of the detailed administration, and have things that benefit employees without a burden on the town. So along those lines, is something that we've been talking about is providing employees with some vacation leave accrued on their start date. So different employers handle vacation differently. You come in and you're told you have 2 weeks of vacation or 3 weeks of vacation. And often people can use that at any time throughout the next year. Sometimes it's a calendar basis, sometimes a revolving basis. I'm sure you all know of different types of vacation policies. The town's policies related to vacation accrual have been very conscious of accruals and set up in a way that tries not to extend benefits and money out before they have been earned. So when we tell somebody that they earn 2 weeks of vacation per year, they get 1/12 of that at the end of every calendar month. So it's a constant accrual basis. And when we often have employees coming in that maybe we hire in May or June, and they have vacation plans for the summer. They've got a trip planned, a wedding, something like that. and they don't have any vacation earned yet. And there are ways that, we have become more flexible through the years of doing things like allowing the town manager can approve use of accrual before it's earned, as long as there's an understanding they have to pay it back, and there are some things like that. But it, again, adds a lot of administration and isn't well received by employees that are just looking to have some flexibility and time off, which is very valued. So we've been talking about the possibility of giving an upfront accrual, still possibly keeping the 1/12, so it's accrual throughout the year, so that there is a way of accounting, but providing people with, say, 24 hours, 3 days upfront, so they have a bank to use if there's something, and then they'll just continue to earn time. So that is one idea that has come up and requested. There are other things with the vacation policy that I think are worth considering. I'd like to engage in a discussion on that and see what we could do to be more attractive to the current workforce. Things like, recognizing service or experience in other places, having a consistent way of doing that. Not everything we need to get into tonight, but I wanted to kind of introduce the topic and see how we can move forward with relooking at that and making sure that we have an attractive vacation policy for the employees.
All right, comments from the Personnel Board? The only comment I guess I have is that it might be nice to be able to, for the next meeting, to have the differentiation in language. That is, you're going to have to propose something for the Personnel Board. So you need to, can you hold just a second? So if it would be great if you could write what it is that you were going to recommend, or you want us to seriously consider. Because right now we don't have anything in concrete.
Absolutely. And our plan is to do more discussion at the department head level and talk with employees. There's been, again, a little uncertainty of what we should be doing if other aspects are being looked at, or what kind of role the Personnel Board wants to play in this. Would you like us to come forward with a proposal? Do you want to look at the policy and provide feedback on things that you have seen in ideas of how it might change? So I was just looking for a little bit of guidance on that. If you had it, we're happy to come forward with more specific proposals. We have some ideas and can explore that. But
Any comments from the Personnel Board?
No, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, no, I don't have any comments. I think, taking both comments together, I think, Amy, I would be interested to see sort of the ideas that you guys are considering, because you're right, there's a number of different ways to sort of address this, and we can certainly provide input from our experiences, but it would be interesting and helpful really to sort of look at the different options that you've considered, or some of the research that you've done in terms of where you landed. I would agree. I don't, a lot of times this happens informally, and someone says, hey, I'll accept the job, but I have a 2-week vacation already planned, and you got to work around it. I think I've seen it where you a couple of different ways. I've seen companies where they'll give you your half of your vacation accrual, and then 6 months later they'll give you the second half. So there's not really an accrual. It's just you have a bank, but it's funded twice a year. In other variations along that line of thinking. So there are a number of different ways you can tackle it, but no, I think you're dead on. You got to appear attractive to candidates.
Amy, do you have you collected data on the municipalities that sort of in the greater Concord, you know, if you took a compass and you drew a circle, and do you have on how, or do you know, or what information do you have on competitive municipalities?
Well, one, it needs a relook, so I don't have the most recent data. But, you know, our schedule for accrual itself, meaning how many weeks per year, had been a standard and or very common in the past, and ours was a little bit more more generous or whatever in terms of when people would move up to a certain amount instead of waiting 5 years. It was 3 years. Over the years, we have seen that change. We've seen other municipalities now being competitive with negotiating vacation in new ways that they didn't, and what you see in their policies, maybe some other things behind it for recognizing service. So I don't have the exact data right now. We are, you know, looking to say, how do we approach this? And
Okay.
we want to be doing something that's, you know, a little more competitive than what others are doing, if we can.
Okay. I guess, so the next meeting, where do you think you would be, and what would be presented to the personnel board, if anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the next meeting, because I think that the senior management team then needs to have some discussions. I was
Sure.
really just, you know, wanted to get a sense if there was a particular way that you wanted us to approach it. It is something we've been considering. It's something we've talked about at union negotiations, things like that. But next meeting, I don't think that we'll have anything, and I'll come back with some more thoughts as we've had those discussions internally.
All right, I guess we're ready to move on to number 8.
Okay.
The town meeting.
I don't know, that vacation leave policy, most of it, the bylaw gives the personnel board and town manager authority to work in. That was a change that was made some years ago in the bylaw to provide some more flexibility. But there are some provisions within the personnel bylaw that can only be changed by town meeting. And these aren't things that the board can take action on and then ratify the same way that the class and comp plan, the details can, the salary ranges. And so looking ahead to town meeting, we have some things that we think might be worth bringing forward. And we don't think it makes sense to wait until the entire bylaw can be reviewed and new recommendations, you know, so I think this would be kind of a parallel process while we're waiting for the task force recommendations. But again, we're open to how to thoughts on how to approach that. But the town meeting schedule, just brief, I put the dates here. So January 8th is a preview meeting, January 28th, the draft articles are due, and February 2nd, the warrant closes. Articles that the town manager and I have been discussing that we'd like the personnel board to consider would be one related to holidays. The personnel bylaw specifically lists the holidays that regular status employees are paid for when town offices are closed. The state of Massachusetts did adopt Juneteenth as a legal holiday. And because it's a legal holiday, we are required to close town offices. That does not provide the employees with pay when we're closed. And so in order to provide the employees that are covered by the personnel bylaw with pay, we have to wait and go through the town meeting process and add that to the bylaw. And this past Juneteenth, where it fell in the work week, we didn't have to close, but going forward, we will be impacted by that. So we would like to bring forward a proposal for recognizing that legal holiday. That I will say the town manager and I had discussions of looking for ways that we might be more creative in providing flexible holidays. I think it's unfortunate from a diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging standpoint to have very specific days that we must be closed, and therefore we don't have the same ability to give people a floating holiday the way that we might otherwise. So we were looking at things about that, but once the state made that decision that it was a legal holiday, we kind of felt that it needed to be addressed through the bylaw and added to the list. The other thing that we would like to do is for Columbus Day, it is a legal holiday. It's listed in the bylaw, and we would like to refer to that as Indigenous Peoples / Columbus Day. So we can't change the Massachusetts law on that, but we can be more inclusive by recognizing the different ways that people recognize that day. So.
And then and then you've got the bereavement leave.
Yeah, and the thing here on vacation, removal of 6-month period, this is a provision that is in the bylaw, even though the bylaw is gives a lot of authority to the personnel board. One of the things it does say is that that vacation can't be used within the first 6 months unless approved by the town manager. This is another administrative process that we think does not add value. There are occasions when sometimes an employee needs to be present during the first 6 months during training, but taking some vacation time in the summer just because they're a new employee doesn't, if they've earned it, we'd rather provide it and not go through the administrative details of having to get special approval for it.
Okay.
And then bereavement leave, we currently have a policy that allows for 3 days for a variety of relationships, and we are interested in expanding to 5 days for some of the closer relationships, like a spouse and a child, a domestic partner, and then keeping 3 days for relationships that we currently have listed, and then adding a 1 day for some relationships that we don't currently provide paid leave for. Things like a aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, that sort of relationship. We've also been looking at terminology for gender neutral terminology there. Learned that,
Sure.
So we want to work on that. But these are concepts that we'd like to explore, providing employees with more flexibility to address family needs and I'll leave it there. Other
Okay.
types of needs too.
So let me just sort of play back what I think you're asking us, is that you're looking for a motion from the personnel board to include your points about holidays, vacation, bereavement leave in the warrant article. Is that?
Well, if the personnel board supports continued discussion of these concepts, I'd be happy to now draft some warrant articles and specific proposals. Again, we're just letting you know, giving you the heads up of the things that we have been discussing, seeing if there's any immediate reaction, any immediate concerns, and we'll bring some specific proposals forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions from Nancy or Jim?
No, I just think that's a great idea, Amy, to put some stuff together for us and just go back over it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that things have often come to the board is you've seen them once and they're kind of out of form and you discuss, and obviously there's a lot more interest in the activities, and we're trying to have ongoing conversation and make sure people know what we're thinking about.
Right.
Great,
Good.
very, very helpful. Thank you, Amy. Any additional points, comments from Jim or Nancy?
No, I'm
All
sorry.
right. So I think we appreciate the information you've given us. And I think sounds like the next step will be not necessarily at the next meeting, but it could be, right? That
There are some,
proposals that include in the warrant.
yeah, I think those we could bring forward for next one.
So let me make certain from a procedural standpoint. This can be proposed, but the town moderator can say, sorry, it's not going to be included. I mean, how does the mechanics of this work?
Well, that's not the norm. Normally it was, there were so many things about that last warrant article that weren't consistent. If the moderator felt that it was inconsistent with, I'm not going to say this though, this isn't my specialty, but inconsistent with the law. Stephen, you want to jump in? Sorry, these are random questions. You look
Yeah,
like
I think it's, you know, certainly if it's not lawful, then town council would review that and advise the personnel board that you either need to change it or it should not be included in the warrant. The moderator really wouldn't, I mean, the moderator is heavily involved in helping people get their articles together and you know, but ultimately the warrant is put together and approved by the select board. So the select board would have some engagement on this as well, but really in terms of what would pass muster to be in the warrant, town council usually provides that review.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And I guess then that also the select board then doesn't have any veto in this regard.
Oh, I think they do.
They do. Okay, that would be my
Yeah,
assumption.
the warrant is the domain of the select board. I mean, other than citizens petitions and I think CPA articles, you know, the select board approve. I mean, the tradition is that boards and committees put together articles for the warrants and they kind of go in if they've approved them, but under state statute, the select board does control the warrant.
Okay, thank you.
Usually on the personnel board articles, the select board and the finance committee hear the topics and vote whether they support it, so that at town meeting knows that the select board supports or opposes, and the same with the FinCom.
All right. All right, I think we've covered agenda item number 8. Any other comments from Nancy or Jim
No, I'm
or
good.
the public? Comments in regards to item 8? All right, we're going to go to number 9, the Personnel Study Task Force status update. Is this, Susan, is Susan still
Ann
with us?
Drarick is here, who's the co-chair,
Okay.
so
Yes,
I'm assuming
right.
that she's gonna take the lead.
All right, thank you.
Ian wasn't specifically asked, this agenda item wasn't asked, we weren't asking for anybody to do a presentation. I know, Susan, you're usually at the meeting, so we had it on here for an update or anybody's observations. I know that various members of the personnel board have been able to attend or watch meetings, and so we just wanted to have it here. So if there were things to provide updates or observations on, that could be done.
Thank you.
I'm
Amy.
happy to speak, but I would defer to Ann if she has.
Well, I was not prepared to speak. I just saw this on here on your agenda. And I am assuming it's the personnel board's thoughts.
I can make some remarks. The task force met yesterday, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about, actually, we're going to be reviewing Monday at the select board meeting, which is going to occur after the task force meeting. But the question came up during the last meeting about the scope of the charge, and a number of members felt that the charge included actually amending or looking at administrative policies. And I don't believe that was what we intended, the select board intended, but it's going to be put on the agenda for Monday so we can discuss it. I can understand looking at it why that it might have been interpreted that way, but I don't believe the intent was for the task force to review administrative procedures except as they relate to the responsibility of the personnel board, which I think is the main focus of the task force. So we're going to sort that out, and we'll have more next time.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Any comments from other personnel board members? Well, it looks like, yes, Nancy? Okay.
Did we lose Nancy?
Nancy is somehow got removed. I mean, she left and she has to re-establish her connection.
Oh, okay. So we don't have a quorum at this moment then.
I think that, at least, well, I guess we have, there's no vote here on this particular item at all.
Okay.
I think maybe the only last vote is going to be the adjournment. But, all right.
Let me see what I can do. I was thinking I could get on my phone, but anyways, I don't think we're gonna do much with the manager search and personnel board. So let me see. It's shutting down and then I can put it back on again.
Okay.
Okay.
Why don't you try it, right?
So, Bill, I should say here that it's not just voting. If you don't have a quorum, you shouldn't deliberate. So what I would say is pause.
Okay. Well, then,
I'm working on trying to reconnect Nancy.
okay. Thank you. I didn't realize that was a
I mean,
requirement.
you could talk about the sides you had at Thanksgiving, but you can't deliberate committee business when you don't have a quorum.
Well, I think we've, at least we've gotten through number 9. I don't think there's necessarily, I know, obviously the task force committee is going to be reaching out to various members of the community, and I would think the personnel board. So I don't necessarily have any comments about this until we, I think, get a little further along. Can we, well, let's see if Nancy can.
She can have my spot, but I actually have to sign off.
Say again?
I said I have to sign off for another commitment. So
Okay,
she,
all right.
she can have my spot.
Okay, thank you.
Just tell her I kept the chair warm for her.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to note that Nancy and I both live in Concord Green, and we don't have access to Concord broadband. We have Comcast.
I got dropped off of Comcast at one of our meetings too, so.
Yeah, we don't have a choice.
No.
So
Let's, we're waiting here for Nancy, obviously. I would like to sort of make a couple comments in regards to the item number 10. But we should wait for Nancy to get back on.
Can she get on by phone?
Well,
She's allowed to deliberate by phone. If I could get her phone number. Amy, do you have that, or
I have it actually.
rather than just broadcast it over the meeting?
Yeah.
It's 369-2249.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I do think this has been a a record-breaking number of people attending a personnel board. It's been interesting and good to see so many people interested. So
Maybe what we'll be able to do, Amy, is to have at least one of those individuals and hopefully a few others would want to become members of the personnel committee, personnel board, because it's the coming thing.
It is, and it's been, the select board has started to list at the end of our agenda, the committees and the vacancies, and personnel board is on that list. So hopefully people who look at the packet will see that and step up.
I think maybe what we need is an incentive plan.
We'll double their pay.
There you go. That's exactly. Chris,
and this
you
isn't deliberation. I also just want, I'm so thankful for all of the staff that participated in highlighting information for you tonight. It's just a tiny window into all of the various considerations and variables that are going on in all of our operations. And we value all the employees. There's so many things that everybody is facing. It was great to have some visitors, and we have some more on here, and there are other departments that also deserve recognition and attention, even if we don't have a particular incentive pay program for them at the moment.
Right.
Welcome
back,
Nancy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Every once in a while, after it's 2 hours,
Okay.
Comcast does that.
All right. Nancy, you're back and we can continue. I think we're next to the next item, which is the discussion of the personnel board in relationship to the town manager replacement. I think that the reason I wanted to put this on there was really just to point out that here is well, let me go back. Is there a process that's been established by the select board in terms of a search committee, Susan?
I know there has been in the past, but we just received Stephen's resignation
Right.
recently.
Yes.
And we know that there's a December 31st deadline for him. So this is something that's front and center on the select board's agenda. We're meeting Monday and the discussions will continue in terms of what kind of, is there going to be an interim? Certainly Kate is authorized as the acting, but that process is yet to be defined. So I don't really have anything to say that's concrete.
So my point is the following. There's been a lot of discussion over the last year or so in regards to the role of the personnel board and what can the personnel board do. And it seems to me that this is an opportunity for the select board to involve at least one member of the personnel board in the search committee. You have members of the personnel board who are all citizens of the town. You've got varying degrees of experience with the town, and I think Nancy probably has the most of anybody. And then you've got people on the personnel board who have been involved with searches and selection for C-suite type positions. So who are very knowledgeable about the various avenues and legal considerations and so forth. So my only point here is to hope that the, and I guess this is going to be on your shoulders, Susan, is that, the personnel board would like to be involved with the search process for the new town manager. And it believes that it has the necessary qualifications among its members to be a valuable resource in that regard. And if really we're talking about what can the personnel board do that it's not doing now, if this isn't an opportunity for involvement, I can't imagine anything else that would be more important. So that was just the reason I put this on to the agenda. I don't know if Jim or Nancy, you have any comments regarding this or not? If you do, let's.
I don't have anything further, no.
Okay.
No,
Anything?
I'm good with what you said.
Okay.
Well, message received, and I'll take this to the personnel or to the select board for
Right.
consideration.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is just feedback that I think would be helpful, and we can certainly see what is the disposition of the interest and the request. Okay, so I guess we're to the next meeting, and the next meeting will not take place on the 8th of December. And I know that Amy's in the process of finding another date. So I know she sent out a feeler here before this meeting, and so Susan and Nancy and Jim, you'll have to provide your feedback. She actually came up with 4 suggested dates. Okay, is there any other sort of overall comments from the public in regards to the personnel board meeting tonight?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So let's, I think we're ready for adjournment. I need a motion to adjourn.
All right. I'd be happy to make a motion to adjourn this meeting tonight at 7:25 p.m.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved that we adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance, and certainly the members of the management within the city certainly appreciate, as Amy has already indicated. So all those in favor of the adjournment, Nancy?
Aye.
Okay, and Jim?
Aye.
And Bill? Aye. All right, that does it. Thank you all so much.
All right.
And we'll look
Good
forward
night.
to the next
Yeah.
meeting. Okay,
Bye.
bye.